Favorite trainer with a belt buckle. How do you know when you're ready to take the NASM CPT? Watch this video to determine when you're ready and then read the book. Alrighty, today we're going to get into the 7th edition NASM. I'm helping one of our Show Up Fitness interns who need to pass this NASM test ASAP. Jenna from Philadelphia. Tell us a little bit more about how you found Show Up Fitness, and then we'll go over some questions that we can help you with past the sucker.
Hi, so I found Show Up Fitness through a Facebook group, NASM Women, and the woman, Ashley, was really helpful and suggested I check out your videos and your program.
And as you know, on YouTube, I'm a personality on purpose, but I'm not as flamboyant and arrogant in person when we do these calls. Or am I being facetious there, Jenna? What would you say?
No, I'd say you're right. You're really helpful, and you have big personality for the videos, but that's just to get us in, get us hooked.
And so that's why we brought other people on the team to help you relate with someone. So you find someone and that's like, well, maybe it's a girl, a guy, Spanish, whatever it is. We can help you pass the sucker as quickly as you can. And section 5 is what we're going to take a look at today. We don't encourage you to read the book. And recently, as of April 2023, NASM now charges you to send you the book. So not only you have to pay for the book, but you have to pay for the shipping as well. Great marketing company. They know how to generate millions and millions of dollars. That's why they're owned by Blackstone Investment Group. They are a great marketing company. If you want to work with a fitness company, that's where Show Up Fitness comes in. We're at our Santa Monica location right now. I've taught this stuff 4th edition, 5th, 6th, 7th. And our number one goal is to clear out the clutter and the bullshit so you can pass this ASAP and then move into actually learning how to train, programming, anatomy, how to build a book of business, online nutrition. We have an RD on the team, physical therapist with the prehab guys. That's what's going to help you be successful. But sometimes there's some tricky questions on this exam, and Jenna was going through a quiz on the NASM site, which if you want to do, that's fine. But if you don't mind talking about that question you came across, we'll address it and then we'll give some more.
Yeah, so it was a question that was asking what the prime mover is on a squat during the eccentric phase.
Now, this is from their website. This isn't from the test. We don't have any proprietary information. We don't work for Show Up. We don't have spies out there sending us information. At NPTI, I was given a ton of quiz questions. And from that, we've accumulated what we've now designed with our study guide, 40 pages, help you pass it in 30 days. We've had people pass it in little 3. If you failed it, doesn't mean you're a failure. We can help you pass this ASAP with these live calls as well. So Jen asked this question the other day, and I thought it was a great one. So let's identify actions and what it means first. So here we have my elbow joint, and this is going to be working in the sagittal plane of motion, flexion and extension. So concentrically, if I were to have a weight, so here's my weight, I curl it, that's concentric at my elbow. Eccentric is coming down. Isometric would be holding. So those are the muscle contractions that we're going to identify with normal movement. When you do a plyometric, you're gonna have a middle phase, which is called amortization. It's very, very quick. So you load it and you jump, hands behind the body. We're not jumping like Tinkerbell, throwing through the air like this. No, load up and then come up as high as you can. And so what it's asking is the opposite of what we're used to. Typically, if we're doing a push-up, we come down, it's eccentric, we breathe in. Concentric is breathing out. Eccentric, breathe in. Concentric, breathing out. So concentrically, during a push-up, the agonist at the shoulder would be your chest, synergist at the elbow would be your tricep. But they threw in a word that can confuse you, eccentric. So we start, oh my God, I don't know what that is. We start freaking out. Just remember, we teach it at Show Up is to identify the movement pattern, and then you understand the muscles that are moving. So when you just try to look at an exercise and memorize the answer, it can be a little confusing. So look at the pattern. The squat is the easiest one because what pattern is it, Jenna?
It's the squat. Yeah, it's a squat pattern. Yeah.
And so it is a knee dominant exercise. And so this question may have like the glutes as an answer, probably had the hamstrings, it probably had the quads, and maybe your TVA or something like that. So your mind's going, uh-oh, 2 answers. I know it's not hamstrings. No, that's the synergist. Stabilizers would be your TVA. I'm left with the quads and the glutes, 50-50 answer. That's when you take a step back and you realize the squat is more knee dominant. So the answer would be your quads, or a hinge would be more glute dominant. And that would be the answer. And so my suggestion is, if you have the textbook, don't get it, number one, but if you have it, then chapters 15 through 20, don't read them. Just go to the pages where they give you the examples. And I just did a blog on our website on how to use this. So go to the examples of their exercise regressions and progressions. So for example, chapter 16, you don't need to know anything minus the progressions and regressions that you can see right here. And so you just need to know those exercises and where they're going to go within the OPT model. That can be confusing because if we don't understand cueing, we've never actually trained someone, we lose our shit on the exam. So it's they say something like, your client, and I just did a great call with Equinox yesterday, and we were going over this. One of the Equinox trainers, I asked him what a prone iso ab is, and he's like, the fuck is that? I have no idea. That's what NASM calls a plank, and you have to realize it goes on the bottom, which is phase 1 or stabilization. So you need to know all of the exercise that NASM wants you to know for their exam. Don't ever freaking use this stuff out in the with your clients. We're going to do a prone iso ab. You have upper cross syndrome. You have pronation distortion syndrome. You're going to fail very, very quickly. So just know this vocabulary, put your NASM hat on, answer it the way they want to. And then once you pass, move on and actually start learning how to become a trainer. So for the most part, foundational stabilization stuff is going to be for core, no movement of the spine. It's beginner stuff. For strength, which have phases 2, 3, and 4, you need to know that it's going to be a little more challenging. Your spine will be moving. So think of like a push-up, more stabilization, which would be phase 1, whereas a bench press would be more strength, phase 2, 3, or 4. And phase 5 is something more athletic and explosive. Football player is going to do explosive bench press into or explosive push-up into explosive bench press. So you have that superset with phase 5. Also have phase 2, which has supersets, but it's not as intense as phase 5. So you need to know the exercise regressions and progressions, which are a huge part, but also where they go in the OPT model. And so I'd say about 60% of the exam is going to be this OPT and all the overactive, underactive assessment stuff that they make you memorize to scare your clients because your upper traps are overactive and you're going to die if you don't fix it. So if I were to say something like a cable rotation, you need to know what that exercise is. You'll see that here. And as you rotate, your back leg is going to be in triple extension. Plantar flexion is also referred to as extension at the ankle, knee extension, hip extension, or backside mechanics, frontside mechanics, triple flexion. You need to know where that goes in the OPT model. It's going to go right in the middle at strength. So they may ask you what would be they're going to give you a scenario. Jenna is a 30-year-old client of yours, and she's performing the cable rotation. She experiences some hip pain while rotating. What would be an appropriate regression within the OPT model? So the wording is what kind of screws people up, but all it's saying is it hurts, make it easier so it doesn't hurt. There's rotation, don't rotate. So you want to find something that is not going to have the spine moving. They're going to throw in an answer like the reverse crunch, and you're thinking, well, that's going to be fine because it's probably going to be okay for Jenna. No, because according to NASM, the OPT model, reverse crunch will go in phases 2, 3, or 4, which is strength. So you'd be looking for something where there's no spinal movement, like a side plank or a prone iso ab or a plank. Any one of these, a cobra, a hydrant, any of those. That's going to be a big portion of the exam. So what I'm going to do now with this exercise, it's going to help you understand what the main exercises are that you need to know for NASM. You need to know where they're going to go in the OPT model, 1, but 2, you're going to need to know the acute variables within that OPT model and the agonists and synergists and stabilizers. So yes, what would you say are the top exercises that you think that you need to know for just what you've seen in the text as well, Jenna? You said squat, so we'll put squat on here. What else?
Yeah. Overhead press, chest press, reverse fly, lat pull, hinge, push up,
And you said
maybe and maybe a lunge.
beautiful. Let's stick here right now. All right. So when you're looking at this, they're going to ask you, what is the agonist? What is the synergist? What is the stabilizer? What plane of motion? This is what we call at Show Up Fitness, the fundamentals of movement. You have 8 core movement patterns. You need to identify what is happening at that joint. Now for NASM, they have 5 checkpoints of human movement, which I think is comical because there's actually 10, but you need to know for NASM what they want. So look at the joint that is moving, pick the bigger muscle, that's the agonist. The joint that is smaller and the muscle that's not as big as that main mover is going to be the synergist. It helps out, synergy working together. And then you're going to have the stabilizer, which will always be for the upper body, your rotator cuff, CUFF. They're not going to ask you what are the names of the rotator cuff muscles. At Show Up Fitness, you need to be able to hop on a Zoom call within 10 minutes to get your Show Up Fitness CPT and be able to articulate and properly pronunciate 17 muscles around the shoulder, which would be your supraspinatus, your infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis. But for the NASM exam, you're just going to have multiple choice questions. Super, super easy. So they're going to ask you, what is the agonist for a squat? What's the main movement? So at the knee, you're going to have your quads. And then at the hip, you'll have your glutes. And you're going to have the synergist, which according to NASM would be your hamstrings, which is false, but that's what they want you to know. And your stabilizers will be your TVA, your transverse abdominis. The word antagonist is the opposite. So the opposite muscle that's going to be working at the hip would be your psoas major. So I also think this is a good exercise in time to identify planes of motion. Remember, sagittal is an imaginary line bisecting the body into right and left half. What the fuck does that mean? So think of it as just flexion and extension. Flexion and extension. Your hips are flexing and extending, therefore it's going to be sagittal plane of motion. We're primarily sagittal creatures. Most movement will be sagittal, running, jumping, squatting, lunging, pushing, pulling within reason. And now it would be good to also identify what NASM will classify as the overactive or underactive. We're going to be at a work event this weekend with the prehab guys. They're our partners from USC. They're doctors and physical therapists. They have over 1 million followers, and we partnered with them for their app and also access to their exercise library. In my opinion, I think it's the best out there. I am biased because they work with us, but we have a great YouTube with them debunking a lot of this information that's outdated, and that's the overactive, underactive stuff. You're not a bad person if you're learning this. You got hosed into thinking that this is the gold standard of certifications. What's really important, if you can't get a refund, pass it, but understand, don't use this stuff moving forward because it is extremely outdated. It's like icing. If you get injured, you don't ice anymore. That is old school. That's 90s, the 80s. There's more scientifically accepted methods that will help expedite the healing process. The same goes with this overactive, underactive stuff. Dr. Jonda back in the 50s or so, I believe, he came up with this stuff. And at the time it was revolutionary. But that's the great thing about science is you need to constantly test it to see what is applicable and the most optimal today. And this has all been debunked, but for NASM, you need to know it's either overactive or underactive. Overactive also means short. It also means tight. The other side is going to be underactive. It's weak. It's lengthened. Always need to know where it goes. NASM is probably not going to ask you they're not going to ask you a question and give you 4 overactive muscles. So if you just memorize, you can go online and type in corrective exercise NASM chart. Just memorize this chart where there's overactive and underactive, and we have this in our guide. So when you see the exam, it's literally going to ask you which of the following muscles is overactive. We're going to give you a scenario. And they're going to give you 3 underactive ones and 1 overactive. Or they may give you 2 and 2, so you can eliminate half. And then one of the correct answers, or the correct answer is going to be upper body, but they're giving you an overactive lower body. So we really need to know within the system where the muscle is and how NASM classifies it. So for example, the glutes, Jenna, will they be over or underactive?
They will be underactive.
Good. The TVA, transverse abdominis, over or underactive.
Underactive.
The psoas major, over or underactive.
Overactive.
Good. Now, this is one of the tests that we do with people who go through the program, is we ask you these questions, and if you can name it like that, just like Jenna did, you're ready to take the exam. If you're like, overactive, and you don't know like that, you're not ready for it. So when you see those questions on the exam, it's super easy to fly through it. We've had the fastest I ever had, and I was pissed off. They did it in 22 minutes. So that's a really good sign right there, Jenna. Now, overhead press is also referred to as a military press. And it's in this plane of motion. So what plane of motion is this, Jenna?
That is frontal.
Good. Remember, back and forth. Sagittal. AB, a deduction at the humerus is going to be frontal. Lateral raise, jumping jacks, a lat pull down. So the agonist will be, according to NASM, your deltoids. Your synergist will be at the elbow, your triceps. The stabilizer will be your rotator cuff. And the antagonist is the opposite, which will be your lats. So it's just the opposite exercise. If I'm pushing up, pulling down is the antagonist, your lats, which will also be in your frontal plane of motion, the lat pull down. So the reason I'll say things like according to NASM, it's because that's not actually correct in real life training. And you can just do this yourself. Put your hand up. And my favorite thing to do at our seminars that we also have 2-month internships in our LA, San Diego locations. Put your hand up and feel your shoulder. You'll see the front part is hard. That's the anterior and medial or lateral deltoid. The back part, the posterior deltoid, is not engaged when you do a military press. And so technically that is not a correct answer. It should be your anterior and medial deltoid as the agonist at the humerus. At the elbow, you have the triceps, but then we also have upward rotation of the scapula. So I'm very animated online. There's a lot of things that grind my gears, but there's a lot of information that NASM is not providing. And I think that's just a lackluster from that marketing standpoint as a marketing company. The scapulas have 8 actions in NASM's textbook. They only give you 4. There's 17 muscles around the shoulder. They don't give you a couple of them, coracobrachialis, for example. The exam is not that hard because the only reason it's hard is because you don't speak NASM. I speak NASM. I don't work for them, never have. I work for a school that used their material. I can speak this stuff super easy. So when you listen to me, guess what happens? You pass it. If you don't listen to me, you're going out there buying other guides and looking at other people's stuff and going through these quizzes. It's too much information. Don't read the textbook. Don't look at other quizzes. I guarantee you will pass this. So the deltoids, the posterior deltoid would be underactive. The anterior deltoid would be overactive. They're not going to ask you about the biceps or triceps. What about the rotator cuff muscles? Jenna, overactive or underactive?
The rotator cuff, are they over or underactive?
And that's not a fair
Are
question.
they underactive?
Because for the most part, they're underactive. A very advanced question would ask you about the subscapularis, which you'll see on some of the pages. That is overactive.
Okay.
For the most part,
Okay.
classify all of them as underactive. But the main one here that you need to know is the latissimus dorsi. And is that overactive or underactive?
Overactive.
Okay. Chest press is going to be the same as a push-up. Technically, this would be multiplanar. You're going to have the chest as the agonist. The synergist would be your triceps. The rotator cuff will be the stabilizers. So it would be your chest or pectoralis major. The synergist will be your triceps at the elbow. The stabilizers, rotator cuff, and then the antagonist is the opposite. So if I'm pushing here, pulling here, which would be your posterior deltoid. The pecs are overactive. Again, biceps, triceps, they won't ask you on. The posterior deltoid underactive. Now, plane of motion, I don't think they would ask you this. This would be more advanced. It's a little more challenging because of the actions that are taking place at the humerus. So at the humerus, we have rotation. And so what plane of motion is rotation in, Jenna?
Transverse.
Yeah, and that's going to be obviously like your reverse fly. That's the type of question that asks you for that. Chest fly, reverse fly. But due to elbow extension, you also have sagittal. So technically a push-up or a bench press is multiplanar. Now the hinge is pretty easy. The most common hinge exercise we probably see today is a hip thrust. They're not going to ask you that. That's too mainstream. They'll probably go to an RDL or a deadlift. And just know that the agonist at the hips will be your glutes. The synergist will be your hamstrings. The stabilizer will be your TVA. And the antagonist, just like the other one, will be your psoas major. Hinge will be in what plane of motion, Jenna?
Sagittal.
Good, very good. Lat pull down would be the same as like a pull up. One's a machine, one is not a machine. Now, a question they may ask you would be the difference between an open and a closed kinetic chain exercise. And just remember, the most distal region, if it's freely moving, it's open. If the distal region is not moving, it's closed. So for example, when I do a squat, distal is furthest away. My feet are on the ground. Therefore, when I do the eccentric motion, which is coming down, concentric coming up, there's no movement of my feet. Therefore, it is a closed kinetic chain exercise. You'll also find typically closed will engage your core a lot. So let's take a look at the pull-up. When my hands are on the bar, come all the way up. My hand, well, not in a situation that didn't move, but when I do, Tyler, do a pull-up real quick. Check out Tyler, one of our trainers in La Jolla. Check out this big hunk right here. So see how do a pull-up. That's concentric, eccentric. Come down, nice. He has some big arms, but they're not as big as mine. They're close. Need a couple more reps of those and you'll get it. But that is a closed kinetic chain exercise. And the reason it's closed is because the distal region, his hands, are not moving. With a lat pull down, I pull it to my chest. Both of them are frontal, according to NASM, but that would be an open kinetic chain exercise. So a push-up versus a bench press. Jenna, which one would be closed?
A push-up.
Good, very good. You're ready for this exam. I'm very confident. We'll go through the OPT model here in a second as well. Lat pull down, the agonist will be your lats, which are overactive. Synergist will be your biceps. We'll get any questions on that. The stabilizer will be your rotator cuff, and then the antagonist will be your deltoids because it's the opposite movement. Reverse fly is a single jointed exercise. All the ones that we've just gone over are multi-jointed. What plane of motion am I in?
With a fly, you start at the front and you open back. So is that transverse?
Good. Because of horizontal abduction, horizontal abduction, there's rotation happening at this joint. This is the ball and socket joint, which has all 3 planes of motion. The hinge joint is just going to have 1 plane of motion. You can see a question on that. You're not going to get a ton on anatomy. There's 206 bones in the human body. There's axial, appendicular. Axial is going to be everything that is pretty much not moving. So your skull, which has 8 bones, your vertebrae, which has 33, your thoracic region, your sternum, it's all axial. Appendicular is coming out. May get a couple questions on physiology, like osteoporosis, something along those lines. Really more the statistics around like BMI and blood pressure. So, Jenna, do you know what what hypertension is?
140/90.
Good. How about overweight for the BMI?
It's like 25.5 to 29.5.
Good. That's 20 to 29.9, which is overweight. Obese.
Okay.
Plus. They're not, again, it's going to be pretty
30 plus.
You're going to see on the exam, your client, Betsy or Frank, is overweight. He has an overweight BMI. What would that range be? We'll have less than 18, which would be underweight, 18.5 to 24.9, which would be normal, 25 to 29.9, which is overweight, and 30 plus is obese. So just remember, for reverse fly, posterior deltoid would be the agonist, therefore the antagonist would be your chest. And last but not least, you're going to have what we call a unilateral movement. I don't like the pattern lunge, because for most textbook trainers, they interpret that as I have to lunge with my clients. And so at our gyms in Santa Monica, La Jolla, West Hollywood, most of our clients are very high end. the rates that we charge here between 150 to 250 per hour. And they're not very conditioned. You have some clients who are conditioned. And with experience, you can look at someone and size them up and be like, oh, can you lunge? Let me see. So like if Tyler were to come in here, he's the son of the CEO of USC, something like that. That's the type of people we get around here. And you can size them up. Tell me about your background. What's going on? You're learning about that individual. That's the PAR-Q. So information that the subject, Tyler in that case, gives me, it's subjective information. What he does, his job, what he's trying to improve, and so forth. That's the medical history stuff. Now, the objective stuff as the trainer I obtain, it's going to be your body fat. It's calipers are what they're going to test you for NASM. So what are the 4 sites that they use for the Durham Wormsley, Jenna?
Bicep, tricep, subscapularis, or suprascapularis, and I can't remember the one on your waist.
You just kind of
suprailiac.
There you go. Good.
Yeah, sorry.
Subscapularis, which is going to be the rotator cuff on the backside. That's taken at a diagonal fold. Biceps and triceps vertical fold. And then the suprailiac, also a diagonal fold. That's right by your belly button. And so that is objective information that I obtained. It's going to be your body fat, your blood pressure, and then also all the bullshit movement screen that NASM wants you to do. It's a trainer of 20 plus years, and I charge a lot more than the rates I just said. I've never in my life done an overhead squat assessment. I've demoed it for students, but I've never done it on the client because I don't scare my clients. I don't freak them out by telling them something's overactive or you have this syndrome and do all these tests to make them feel inferior. I can tell for the most part, and we should be able to size someone up and be like, you know what are your goals? If someone comes in, they're overweight or obese, I'm not going to get my pen and paper out and start prodding them around and tell them how dysfunctional they are. You are fat according to this, and you're a pile of shit. No. What are your goals? What would you like to achieve? Do you have any injuries? No. Let's go out there and move. How can we regress movement to make it appropriate for you want? For most of my women clients, we're going to focus on lower body. For my male clients, we're going to focus on upper body. We're going to do more pushing and pulling. We're going to focus more on squatting, hinging, unilateral, and transitional stuff for my women. We do exercises that you enjoy. We make it appropriate, and then we overload. And that's what a great trainer can do. You give them an appropriate workout and assessment. You present a plan that's specific for them, and they commit to working with you for a long period of time. We can get anyone hired at Lifetime, Equinox. We have literally hundreds of trainers. We have the top trainers there. And we also have Equinox trainers who teach some of our courses. Wherever you want to go in the fitness landscape, whether if you want to start your own garage gym, you want to go work for LA Fitness and Orange Theory, we can get you hired there with our show up in the CPT. Just because you have your NASM or ACE or ISA doesn't mean you're automatically going to get hired. These gyms want confident trainers, and that's what we provide you with. The lunge really just depends on your body position, but it's very similar to the squat where it's going to be knee dominant if you're more upright. Your glutes will be working, the synergist will be your hamstrings. The antagonist is going to be your psoas major. What plane of motion will we be in here, Jenna?
For forward lunge, that's sagittal.
Yep. You may see some stuff like on stages of change. So review that. Do you feel pretty comfortable with that, Jenna?
Yeah, I think so.
And if you don't, just go into the app and watch the replay. So the calls that we have every single day for our NASM Elite bundle, they're recorded, they're put into the app. Ashley does Mondays, and she went over stages of change. Today's Wednesday, so we have our Spanish version. We can get anyone to pass in Spanish beforehand. And then tomorrow is Megan, and she'll get into more of the OPT model. So with the OPT model, you just need to know the acute variables for those 5 phases. So Jenna, what are the reps that you would use for phase 3?
Reps for phase 3, 6 to 12 reps.
And that's your muscular development or hypertrophy phase. How long am I resting in phase 5, Jenna?
Phase 5 is 3 to 5 minutes.
Good. When I do a jump with stabilization, how long am I holding that for?
3 to 5 seconds.
Good. And ice skaters, where do I put that in the OPT model?
Power.
Good. What is my tempo for phase 1?
4, 2, 1, 1.
Give me an example of a superset for phase 2.
chest press and push up.
Good. Give me an example of a superset with phase 5.
So you do like a ball slam squat into like a jump squat onto a box.
Any type of explosive ball throw, anything with a med ball MB would be phase 5. There's your OPT model. You just pass NASM. You got your piece of paper. Good. Now it's going to be, let's actually learn how to program. Those are things that we're going to teach you when you pass. So I'm very confident you're going to pass. Any questions for me, Jenna, before we call it a day?
For the test, do you think the things about the hormones will be a major part, or just try to get the basics? Okay.
No anabolic, testosterone, growth hormone, insulin, IGF, no catabolic, cortisol, catecholamines. That's all you need to know.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah. All righty. If you guys have any questions or comment on this video, shoot us a DM on Instagram, Show Up Finish, Show Up Finish internship. We have in person in LA, also in San Diego, 2 months where you learn how to actually train hands-on. We'll get you hired at Lifetime Equinoxes, help you start your own gym, build your online business as well. We'll see you time. Have a great day. Remember, Wednesdays, hunk and hunkette day. Have a great day. Keep showing up.